It's your man, 100 grand Ross with the Rock Never Stops. What the Detroit Pistons must learn from the Thunder Pacers finals. That starts today. Starts today. If I'm honest with you, I'm really excited about this series. I think it's going to be a basketball lover's dream type of a series. It's one of those series where it's like, look, if you're a casual and you're just looking for LeBron James or one of the superstars that you know passingly of, and you just want to show up and watch them and kind of cheer with other people, this may not be the series for you. But if you love the game of basketball, if you love the whole styles make fights, if you love the whole, um, just the essence of the game, guys playing together, high level of skill, people playing their roles to a T, great coaching. I mean, there's so many dynamics taking place within this finals, and I'm going to get into a lot of it. But I think that there's also a lot for the Detroit Pistons to take away from because if they can understand how these teams are constructed, how they're currently playing, what the systems look like that's most effective, how to construct an effective roster, and the importance of defense, then they're going to continue to develop this team really well, really well. But if they make some of the mistakes that a lot of these other teams make in their early roster construction, system, culture, etc., they end up being one of these teams that just never get over the hump. They kind of stay hitting that ceiling, hitting that glass ceiling of on the outside looking in when it comes to being a contender. But once again, it's your man, 100 grand Ross with The Rock Never Stops, coming to you with live interactive chat videos. This video is going to be fun. So if it's your first time joining me, definitely smash the like button, hit subscribe and the bell for notifications. It lets the YouTube algorithm know that you enjoy this type of content and opportunity to interact within a live video with a content producer. With that said, let me just dive in. The Detroit Pistons, man, they've come a long way. And I think that we've celebrated them a lot this year. Coming from 14 wins to 44 wins, they just had one of the most amazing turnarounds in NBA history, tripling their win score, or their win total from the previous season. It's just never been heard of. And I think that Cade Cunningham was correct in his assessment last season when he said, uh, we're not 14 wins bad. We may not be playing great. We may not be top of the line. We may not be one of these teams that you can really get excited about right now, but we're not this bad. We're not this bad. And I think he looked around and he saw Asar, he saw Ivy, he saw Dern himself, and he was like, "Yeah, man, we're not 14 wins bad. This is just kind of a fluke. Things just haven't gone our way." And I think he's shown that he was right. He was right. There were a lot of things that did not break in the Pistons' way last season, the season before this current one, that caused them to have a 14-win season. Most notably, the injuries of its veterans. Injured veterans on a young team are almost a death sentence. When you combine that with the new coach, combine that with having to adjust to different talents and different roles, right? Ivy was now going to the bench, had a new coach. A lot went wrong last season. But this season, a lot of all those things came together. People were set in their roles. People understood what to expect. People were bought in. Guys were in a position to thrive together. And most notably, their veterans came together and were the glue that held it all together. The shooting of Malik Beasley, Tim Hardaway Jr., that veteran presence of Tobias Harris, knowing what to do always at the right time. And then Isaiah Stewart's otherworldly defense off the bench was absolutely phenomenal for these Detroit Pistons. And all that came together around the talents of Cade Cunningham, Asar Thompson, Jalen Duren, and Jaden Ivey. And then Ron Holland was also a rookie revelation in and of itself. And now the offseason begins for the Detroit Pistons. We got the draft coming up. They got the number 37 pick. And then they have free agency. And I keep telling y'all, free agency is going to be an absolute like almost like one of those shows, one of those real TV shows where it's just shit is just happening nonstop. People are getting traded. We're talking about Carl Anthony Towns for Kevin Durant. We're talking about potentially changing coaches that are currently on other teams. Right? People want Ime Udoka to go to the Houston Rockets, even though he's already in Houston. Right? We're looking at teams trying to move up, teams trying to give themselves a chance, people coming back. You got the Raptors, all these different teams, right? There's so many moves that are going to be made this offseason. And so free agency is going to be an absolute excitement, wild, wild west, nonstop things to talk about uh, and things moving and shaking. With that said, you got to be careful. You got to be careful. There's a saying that goes, make your next move your best move. Make your next move your best move. And I think that sometimes it's easy to get distracted. It's easy to get caught up in the hoopla of all these different things going on around you, everybody making moves, and you just want to be a part of the action. You just want to be a part of the show. And you can end up making moves that are going to cost you long term, that are going to cost you long term. It's interesting because when you look at Oklahoma City and the Indiana Pacers, both of these organizations have built in a very intentional kind of way. They needed to find their superstar. They needed to find their guy. And then they systematically put guys around that guy, whether it's been through the draft, whether it's been through free agency, but they have been meticulous and they've been patient. They've been patient. They've waited for the right move, not just any move. They've been extremely patient. And I think that that is something that the Detroit Pistons need to learn right off top. Let me get to some of these chats. Calm Guy was good, man. Next season gonna be a movie. Yo, I think honestly, if I'm honest with you, I think almost every organization should do a should put out like a documentary type movie on the previous season. What's happened, why things took place, get some interviews from coaches, um, players, the rookies, some of the veterans, get sound bites, like clips from notable games, all these different things. I think every team should be doing that at the end of every season. And then they should do like the off season. Like it should be like year round, you know, putting your team out there and allowing fans to engage with the team, because a lot of this stuff we are having to engage with like in a tertiary manner, right? Like we wait for the interview, we wait for um, the post game press conference, we wait for the articles to come out, and we're kind of like hearing it after someone else has heard it and then putting it out, and then we try to catch up. I think every team should be just allowing us that level of access, because it's already a global game that is on television, and that's really where its meat and potatoes is. I think it's a missed economic opportunity for most of these organizations, which is something to really think about. All that's to say is next season's going to be lit. The Detroit Pistons, they're coming, bro. I think this label that I've given them, the Jump Squad, I think it works. People have a lot of names. I think Jump Squad works because of the style of play. They're going to jump all over teams next year. Ron Holland, Jaden Ivey, Cade Cunningham, Asar Thompson are going to be jumping all over teams on the perimeter. That defense is going to be smothering. Having players who can play that dogged defense, high motor defense, hands in the passing lanes, turning you over, getting out in transition, dunks after dunks after dunks, I think it's going to wreak havoc on the league. I don't think there's teams that are built to deal with the level of perimeter pressure that they're going to be able to provide. And I think that it's going to connect to how I think the Pistons need to intentionally build this offseason. Who they draft, who they look to sign as free agents, need to be players that can reinforce that style of play. You need high motor, athletic guards who can, or wings, or even forwards, who can play a variety of positions, whether it's the two, the three, whether it's the one and the two, whether it's the three and the four. We need guys who can switch. We need guys who are long. We need guys who are bought into defense and getting out in transition so we can maintain a style of play through our bench. If you look at the Indiana Pacers and the Oklahoma City Thunder, the style that they play does not diminish when somebody comes in off the bench. When TJ McConnell comes in off the bench for Andrew Nimhart or Tyrese Halliburton, they still keep up the pressure. They still keep up the pushing in transition, even off of made baskets, and they're getting downhill constantly, no matter who's in. It doesn't matter if it's Benedict Mathurin coming in the game, even though he tends to slow down a bit. I think they continue to push him. I think they'll miss Jarris Walker because I think he was coming into his own against the Knicks, but he sprained his ankle. And that's a big loss for the Pacers because of his defensive versatility. But it's to say that every guy who comes in to the game not only is bought into the style of play, but they're also understanding how to utilize their skills for the system at hand. Whether it's Oklahoma City Thunder bringing in Casey Wallace, bringing in Isaiah Joe, whoever comes in off of that bench is playing that style. Kendrick Williams, it doesn't matter. Right. So that's one of the first things. Whoever you bring in has to reinforce the style of play. It can't be someone who plays a more lackluster style or plays a completely different style. And now you have to switch things up. You look at the New York Knicks, one of the biggest things that hurt them is that Tom Thibodeau is not a good offensive schemes coach. And we know that. It isn't a knock to him, it's just an acknowledgement. But when you bring in offensive minded players who are bad on defense, what you do is you create a disconnect. You create the inability for the coach to effectively help his players to maximize their potential within his strengths and their strengths. Right? You see too often he rests his offense on ball dominant players who can create for themselves. Derrick Rose, Jimmy Butler, Karl Anthony Towns, Jalen Brunson. And then he's coaching up defense, 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 defense. What would have been more effective is if the New York Knicks brought in nothing but two-way players. Yes, guys who can create their own offense, but guys who are also bought in defensively. So you maximize the potential of your coach. Not guys who play zero defense and are cones on defense and get taken advantage of all the time, especially in the playoffs, like Brunson and Towns. And I know it's hard to say because Brunson has been their MVP. He's been that guy all NBA. He's been that guy repeatedly all star. And they have basically followed him. The problem is the guys they're bringing in around him. Karl Anthony Towns to me was just the wrong move. I would have rather kept Julius Randle, Dante DiVincenzo, and brought in guys like you look at Jay Huff, the Memphis Grizzlies picked up last season. 7-footer who could shoot threes, springy, athletic, but plays defense. Right? He's a guy that they got out of the G League. He's a guy that they got 25, 26 years old, 7-footer. Right? I'd have rather seen them supplement their bench rotation and figure out how to play guys who can be effective within the coach's system rather than bringing in guys who are completely outside the coach's system and culture as a means to doing that. You know, and that's just something that's just my preference. I think you need to bring in players who match the coach, who match the system. Coach creates a culture, a system, and then you bring in the players to match that. That maximizes the total overall potential and ensures that you don't have this dissonance between the coach and the performance of the team. Now, that moves us on to the next point. How do you bring in guys that also complement your main stars? When it comes to complementing your stars, you want to make sure that you don't bring in guys who replicate what your stars do. You want guys who are great at doing the things that your star doesn't do. So SGA, he is complemented by J Dub because J Dub has a level of physicality and force on the perimeter. His ability to guard 1 through 4 at times because of his length. He's low, stocky. He's also able to get to the rim and play with a level of physicality, getting to the rim that SGA just kind of doesn't do. Now he has a different type of physicality in his sleekness, his ability to move in this kind of like helter skelter, get you off balance, change of pace type of a play, but it's more skillful than it is forceful. You look at Chet Holmgren, defends, rebounds, spot shooter, can attack mismatches in the front court. That's not something SGA does. SGA is not going to guard wings, especially bigger, more physical wings. He shouldn't. And he doesn't guard bigs. That's what Chet does. Isaiah Hartenstein complements Chet, right? He's the more physical interior player, focused on rebounds, putbacks, things of that nature. It allows Chet to play to his strengths and be a roamer, right? It complements J Dub, whether you have a Luguins Dort, gives you a little bit of what J Dub does, right? He has that little stocky, defending, good a good wingspan, physical wing defender or guard defender. But he definitely doesn't do anything that SGA does or that Jalen Williams does, J Dub does, right? Case and Wallace, same thing. These guys complement one another. They complement. What happened when they had somebody who didn't complement? Josh Giddey. Once they realized they were in a championship window, he got traded. Once they saw themselves stepping into that window, won 50 some odd games, lost the second round of the playoffs, and they recognized that Josh Giddey was unplayable in the playoffs. He was unplayable. He wasn't somebody that they could rely on to defend. He didn't fit the culture or the system. And so they traded him for Alex Caruso. Could you say that Josh Giddey is far more talented than Alex Caruso? Yes, 100%. Say he has more skill? Probably, likely. But the fit is the difference maker. Alex Caruso fits the culture and the system of the team while complementing the main players, SGA, J Dub, Chet Holmgren. Same thing with the Indiana Pacers. Aaron Nesmith doesn't replicate what Tyrese Halliburton does, who doesn't replicate what Andrew Nembhard does, who doesn't replicate what Pascal Siakam does or Miles Turner. Each of them has a designated role that they do masterfully at a high level. This is why these teams are able to operate at such a high level. This is the reason why they're able to play together collectively and beat out more talented teams. It's why the Pacers could beat the Knicks. It's why the Pacers could beat the Cleveland Cavaliers or anyone else because of their construction. These guys fit. They fit. Same thing with OKC. The reason why they were able to beat Denver. Well, also, I would say Denver had a lot of injuries. Denver was more than equipped to take OKC to 7 and potentially win. But the injuries make a huge difference, which is why you want to bring in guys who can step in and support and play active minutes. But that's also connected to the coach, right? There was a huge disconnect between Michael Malone, Calvin Booth, and that front office. They brought in guys who we saw once he was fired were able to play with this team, but just weren't getting opportunities. And that was the coach. You didn't have that synergy through the front office, the coach, to the players. All that's to say is that whoever you bring in has to have that synergy. They have to be in alignment with what this team and system is. And it's better to wait than to commit yourself to somebody who then locks you into what doesn't work. That's what keeps mediocre teams mediocre. That's what keeps teams under that glass ceiling of stepping into being a contender, right? Karl Anthony Towns should have never been on these New York Knicks. He was exciting, all NBA, all star, and when you needed him the most, he was unplayable. That's just the reality. So when people are talking about going out and getting somebody like, uh, let's say Devin Booker, I would say no. He doesn't complement. He replicates a lot of what Cade Cunningham already does, and he doesn't necessarily fit the cultural system. Right? He's not gonna be this up into you, high motor dog defender on the perimeter to create turnovers and get out in transition. That's not what he does. He's best in the half court, operating with the ball in his hands, trying to create in the mid range. That's what Cade Cunningham does. When people say go after Michael Porter Jr., I'm like, no, he doesn't fit the cultural system of this team. Does he complement? Yes. Great shooter with size, 6'10. Wonderful. Doesn't defend, doesn't pressure. He's not someone to get out in transition. He's athletic, but is not necessarily a transition player. doesn't fit the cultural system. These are things that Detroit has to master and understand if they're going to make the most of this team's opportunity to move into a championship window, which I keep saying 2 years. Next year is going to be the solidifying. I think that's where we're in that 45 win range again, but the team is going to learn more in the playoffs. What's going on, Chris? Peace, brother. This is an interactive live chat. So if you got any comments about what I'm talking about, definitely let me know in the chat and we can chop it up about it. Um, all that's to say is the Detroit Pistons have a lot to learn from these two teams, roster construction, the system that they created, and how these coaches interact with the players. Through and through, Jarris Walker struggled to get playing time not because of a lack of continuity between the coaching staff and the front office and himself, but because the team is just so damn deep. And that's another thing that the Detroit Pistons can learn from the need for depth. The need for depth. They had the type of depth that was able to sustain them that even though they had injuries in the early part of the season for the Indiana Pacers, they were still able to get enough wins so that when everyone got healthy in the second half of the season, they could go on this amazing run. How many point guards and facilitators, shooters, wing defenders, front court players, lob threats, guys to push the pace and the tempo do they have on this team? And that's not even counting the guys who have gotten injured and haven't come back, like Isaiah Jackson, right? Or what's his name, James Wiseman, who they had to cut, unfortunately, right? These guys, they just keep bringing in guys who fill in these voids, who fill in these gaps that give Rick Carlisle a lot of options. And that's what I think Trajan Langdon has to be focused on into this offseason. How do you give JB Bickerstaff options? How do you make sure that he has guys whom he could fill in different ways to play different styles to maintain the cultural system, right? Defense, hard hat, lunch pail, come to work every day, consistent effort, team first guys who move the ball, unselfish. But if they need a little bit more length, they need a little bit more shot creation. If they need a little bit more of this or that, he has those options. One of the things that I will also point out is that when you're in a championship window, rookies don't really play. When you're in a playoff window, rookies don't really play. Ron Holland got the minutes he got not because he's ineffective or can't play at a high level. It's because there was so much for him to learn about the NBA game, understanding the scouting reports, how to prepare himself, what to expect from different players, how to adjust to how teams are playing you and what they're trying to do in different moments. There was so much for him to learn that it was going to be hard for him to be an effective part of winning for the most part throughout the season. And it was only a testament to his hard work, focus, dedication, the system, the coaching, the support that he was able to get the minutes even that he did get. Next season, I expect Ron Holland to have a much bigger role. And I also expect that whoever they draft is going to be further along that learning curve. They're not going to be a 19-year-old. The guys who they're looking to bring in are not going to be guys who are unproven. They're not going to be individuals who have a lot of potential. It's going to be players who can come in and fill a void right now. Right? It's going to be the Aaron Nesmith acquisition. Remember when they got Aaron Nesmith from the Boston Celtics, he wasn't this great talent per se. He's very talented, but he wasn't playing well for the Boston Celtics. He wasn't having a good early era of his career. He was struggling. And when he came to the Pacers, he ended up being able to play at a high level because he was able to reinvent himself and buy into the system at hand. Just want to double check. See, boom. Aaron Nesmith, who's 25 years old. 25 years old. You have to understand, as a rookie, he only had one start, only played 46 games. As a sophomore, only 3 starts, played 52 games. Getting 14 minutes as a rookie, only 11 minutes per game as a sophomore. Well, when he came to Indiana at 23 years old, all of a sudden he filled a void. All of a sudden he was playing every game. He played 70 plus games the next 2 seasons after coming to the Indiana Pacers. And then 45 this last year, but he had injuries. Playing 25, 27, 25 minutes per game. right? What you're able to step into in terms of effectiveness for a winning team is predicated upon that learning curve. This is why someone like Pascal Siakam was so integral to this team's ability to elevate itself. Isaiah Hartenstein and Alex Caruso, so integral to these teams elevating themselves because they needed to be veterans who still fit along the timeline, but had already gone along that curve, that learning curve of how to be effective for a winning team. Isaiah Hartenstein playing with the Knicks last season in a deep playoff run into the semifinals, right? You have Alex Caruso, who played with the Lakers, right, in their championship runs. These guys who are able to step in and support, which is why I keep saying the veterans, I want them to upgrade the veterans. Keep the core. Keep the core. Keep Sasser, keep Holland, keep Ivy, Cade, Asar, Duran, right? Keep the core, Isaiah Stewart, but upgrade the veterans. Can we upgrade Paul Reed, Simone Fontecchio? Can we upgrade Tim Hardaway Jr., Malik Beasley, Dennis Schroeder? Can we get guys with more versatility defensively? Can we get guys who offer more length and athleticism? Can we get guys who offer a little bit more playmaking, a little bit more dynamic, not just, as I call them, shot chuckers, right? Tim Hardaway Jr., Malik Beasley, for the most part, they are shot chuckers. They're guys whose game really centers around shooting, taking shots. Their effectiveness, their effectiveness comes in their efficiency in taking those shots. But in no way, shape, or form are we expecting them to be playmakers, facilitators, two-way players who are defenders, who have defensive versatility. We're not expecting them to rebound, right? There's a whole lot of other areas where they don't check the box. Can we bring in guys who can check the shooting box and also check the box of defense, rebounding, versatility, right? All these other areas that fit the cultural system of the team that give JB Bickerstaff flexibility within the roster and his playing style, right? So that's what I think the offseason needs to look like when we're looking at different people that we want to sign, right? That's the first thing I'm going to ask you. Do they fit? Do they fit the cultural system? Right? Are they going to play hard, high motor? Are they going to play defense? Do they have versatility? Are they consistent, reliable, team first guys, moving the ball, right? Not black holes on offense. And do they fit the timeline? We want guys who are 26, 27, 28 years old, right? That's the preferred veteran who we're willing to invest in, right? That's the Isaiah Hartenstein. That's the Alex Caruso. That's the Aaron Nesmith. That's the guy that you're going to spend a little bit more money for. And then the veterans who fit at the more periphery, supportive, those are the guys who you're not going to want to spend as much money for. You don't want to spend a lot of money for a bench veteran unless it's a guy who gives you cap flexibility, who they only have one more year on their deal, like Marcus Smart or Chris Middleton. Those guys who have 1 or 2 more years, that's perfect. A lot of playoff experience, versatility, playmaking, facilitating, defense, size, positional size, skill, and they're not going to hurt you in the long run in terms of salary cap, which is why I keep cautioning a lot of you who want to go out and get a player who you're going to have to pay max money for. Who you're going to have to pay a lot of money to because those guys are going to lock you in like we see the New York Knicks currently locked in with Karl Anthony Towns. They are locked into that contract. And it's going to be hard as hell to move off from it. Now, I know they're talking about Kevin Durant, and that's a possibility. Like I said, it's the Wild Wild West offseason. Once it kicks off, I expect a lot of these moves to hit fast. And of course, I'm going to be doing my lives to recap what's going on. But it's to say that you want to be intentional. Pascal Siakam deserved that max extension from the Indiana Pacers because of the role that he plays. Eastern Conference Finals MVP, right? Going into the NBA Finals, he has championship pedigree and experience with the Toronto Raptors. He has a ring already. And if you watch that series, if it wasn't for the storyline around Kawhi Leonard, Pascal Siakam could have easily been an NBA Finals MVP. Easily in that series. If you go back and watch it, he tortured Draymond Green, right? He tortured that team. He was just constantly all over the place, productive, quietly productive, right? They need to call him Silent Night because he just comes in and does work, and then you wake up in the morning and you got all these gifts. He just gave you 30 points, 12 rebounds, 5 assists, maybe a steal and a block. And you're just like, wow, great efficiency. I had no idea. I wasn't expecting this at all. Right. That's what Pascal Siakam, he was worth that investment. Two-way guy, fit the system, amazing in transition. Fit the superstar Tyrese Halliburton seamlessly. That's the guy you invest in. That's the guy you're giving out a max contract to, not a Michael Porter Jr. Not the guys who other winning teams look to get off from so they can step into a winning position. Right? Remember, the Milwaukee Bucks got off of Malik Beasley because he wasn't versatile enough defensively and he goes cold in the playoffs. So they went and got Gary Trent Jr. At least he gives them more size defensively. We picked up Malik Beasley. He shot amazingly for us, and then he went cold from games 2 through 5, and then he picked it up in 6. Right. So these are things that we have to take note of. The Dallas Mavericks, when they wanted to get off of Tim Hardaway Jr., couldn't wait to get Quentin Grimes. Right? There's a reason why winning teams get rid of certain guys and then want to bring in other guys. We need to pay attention to that. Why did they bring in an Alex Caruso, Isaiah Hartenstein? Why did they bring in a Aaron Nesmith or Pascal Siakam? Why did they bring in guys who could contribute right now? And Obi Toppin, who they got from the New York Knicks, because he fit the cultural system. They wanted to get out and run. Obi Toppin is amazing in transition. Right. So these are the things that the Detroit Pistons have to be aware of going into this offseason. Don't invest in guys who don't fit who you are. That's why I like PJ Washington, Jabari Smith Jr., two-way players, versatile defenders who can also shoot and pressure on the perimeter while also being strong rebounders. This is exactly what the team needs, exactly what they don't have in the front court right now at the forward position. Outside of Asar, they don't have that positional versatility within that power forward position. Tobias Harris can't go down and guard threes. You can go up and guard fives a little bit, but that's not necessarily what we want him to do at 6'9" and now 34 years old. That's not necessarily the role we want him in. But a PJ Washington, Jabari Smith Jr., right? They are worth investing in. That's worth giving a guy a $15 to $20 million deal when you already got to give Duran and Ivy a similar $18 to $22 million deal. So these are things for us to think about. I know a lot of us are excited. There's going to be so many things being thrown around. I can't wait to see these finals. I can't wait until the offseason starts. Like I said, I think it's going to pop immediately because, there's this whole tampering thing. Don't tamper. Look, let me be honest. Talks are already being had between front offices and agents. It's already being had. And then from the agents to the player, where they want to go, who they're willing to go to, what they want to do. Don't be shocked to see Durant coming out back east. Um, there's a lot of moves to be made. Giannis could end up in San Antonio. I think it's a great move for him, but he could end up anywhere, right? A lot of moves are going to be taking place. Devin Booker might end up in Houston. I could totally see that. I think trade for Jalen Green type of deal. There's so many moves to be made. And the Detroit Pistons need to be focused on the right move, not just making a bunch of moves. Bryant Williams was good, man. I think Coach should have given Sasser more time in the playoff. I think so too. I think so too. I thought it was a missed opportunity, but it was consistent with what JB Bickerstaff had done all year long. I do think, though, this offseason, Marcus Sasser has to come in and kick down the doors. He has to say, I'm taking this position. He cannot allow for anyone else to come in and take his spot. Now, I get JB Bickerstaff. He had Darius Garland. He likes that scorer who can also facilitate. That's what they try to, position him into, and they needed that role. Unfortunately, that was not innate to Marcus Sasser, and so he had to grow into it. It was a learning curve, and eventually came trade deadline. They recognized with Ivy hurt, they needed to bring in someone else, and that just all but completely swallowed up his opportunity between Dennis Schroeder and Malik Beasley. It could just completely swallow up Marcus Sasser's opportunity. But I think this offseason, he needs to be locked in and say, I need to come into training camp and I need to do me. Yes, I learned how to facilitate a little bit more. Yes, I learned how to play make for others, but I need to come in and be an amazing version of me. And a video is coming soon on that because I think that he is a great talent for this team. I think he could be a microwave scorer who also is a dog on defense. I think he could be a great point of attack coming in off the bench. He could be our TJ McConnell easily. More 3-point shooting. I think he could come in and be a great asset for us. Oh man, now y'all throwing in all the comments now. All right, I was about to hop off. Let me see. Sports Times. I saw a source come out today. The Knicks are looking at Mike Brown and Luke Walton. If they bring in Luke Walton, I'm gonna laugh so hard. But Mike Brown for sure. I like Mike Brown. I thought he was definitely strong coach, similar to Thibs, but with more openness in terms of offensive creativity. Um, yeah, definitely not Luke Walton. Hell no. K Bar was good. I don't think I've seen you in there before, but welcome to the channel. I like to see Sasser paired with a bigger ball handler. It can't work defensively with Schroeder and Sasser together. Completely. I don't think Sasser. I don't think Schroeder's coming back anyhow. I think he's going to be signed by a team who needs that incumbent starter until the starter gets there, type of a backup point guard or temporary starting point guard. So the Dallas Mavericks, Miami Heat, um, Washington Wizards, those type of teams, or somebody like the Charlotte Hornets who need the eventual starting point guard because we all know LaMelo gets hurt every single year. So I think that Schroeder is going to be gone. But it's to say that I've been liking the idea of Sasser and Ron Holland. Can Ron Holland take on some more ball handling responsibility? I think I'm very confident Marcus Sasser this year is going to be able to run the second unit while also being a big time scorer. But if you think about it also with Jaden Ivey back, Jaden Ivey is going to take on a lot of the primary ball handling and facilitating roles as well. Expect to see the minutes between Ivy, Cade, and Asar staggered throughout the game. So one of them is always in the game. And I think that's going to alleviate Marcus Sasser from some of the ball handling, facilitating, offensive initiating responsibilities, which allows him to play more towards his strength of shot creation and being a dynamic scorer. So I don't think necessarily he's going to need another ball handler that we don't already have. I think that between Asar, Ivy, and Cade, along with Ron Holland, he'll have more than enough supplementary facilitation so he can play to his strengths. He just needs to come in and be lights out. He's need to come in summer league and drop 40-point games and just be killing them. And then they're just like, all right, you're good. You don't need to play anymore. Right. We'll just play the other guys. Um, Let me see. I don't think it'll happen, but I wouldn't be mad at it. JB needs an assistant that can help add more offensive creativity. That's true. That's true. I don't know who that guy is. I do think that there are plenty of young, up and coming coaches who might be great for this team, who might be a wonderful uh, support, but they're going to be younger guys who have been number 3, number 4, number 5, number 6 on other coaching benches. Like I might look to try to grab somebody from OKC's um, assistant coaches. I might try to grab someone from Houston's. Teams that have had big jumps, who have done really well, who maybe even the Indiana Pacers, right? I might go to them and say, hey, you know what? One of these tertiary coaches, 3, 4, 5, who might have a lot of experience, 5, 6, 7 years of experience on these benches, being a part of their progress and growth, and then saying, I would love for you to come in. But I definitely agree with that. JB Bigstaff definitely needs to improve his coaching bench because Luke Walton's not it. Um, Kate Sasser minutes, or heck, even Sasser. Yeah, I agree. Sasser needs more opportunities. He's a scorer. I like to see Sasser defend Lindsey Hunter, Mike James. Yeah, facts. Oh, facts. That's exactly how I see him. Dude, just be a bucket and a dog on defense. I think that's exactly what we need behind Cade, Ivy, and Thompson. Sasser is exactly what we need as a six man off the bench. That might be the title. Let me write that shit down right now. That might be the title of my Sasser video. Um, yeah, Sasser is exactly what the Pistons need behind the big three. Yeah, he's a bucket. I think we see how important that guy is for these teams, especially when they also play defense. Especially when they also play defense. And I think that that's something that OKC maybe lacks a little bit. Right, they don't have much of a scoring punch off the bench. They kind of try to buoy uh, SGA and J Dub. I'm trying to remember their nicknames. SGA and J Dub in terms of who's going to be the primary offensive option, who creates a lot for everybody else. They try to stagger that. But I think when you have somebody who comes in off the bench and can change the landscape of the game by their scoring ability, if you have a guy like a Sasser, Peyton Pritchard, TJ McConnell, who can come in off the bench, a Benedict Mathurin, right? We saw against the Knicks how he completely changed things when he came in off the bench. Immediately got to his mid range pull up bucket, got 2 fouls going to the basket, free throw, free throw, free throw, free throw. Got a steal, got out in transition, and that's in a 6 minute span. All of a sudden now he's generating his own offense to where now you don't have to rely upon guys having to work the system at a high level against really good teams that are going to be prepared for it. And the guys coming in aren't as talented, right? And so having someone like a Marcus Sasser who can come in and get buckets the moment he steps on the court, I think is going to be perfect for this team. Perfect. And that's why, and that's another thing that the Pistons can really lean upon, that they can learn from the Pacers and the Thunder, which is somehow surprised I didn't mention it already. It's continuity. Continuity. Betting on your guys goes a long way. Betting on your guys goes a long way. Not constantly trying to bring in guys outside to do what your guys are already doing, right? Bringing in Towns to then be Julius Randle and Dante DiVincenzo. I would have rather seen them see what was coming, try to keep Obi Toppin, right? Try to keep Dante DiVincenzo. Try to keep Julius Randle, right? And if anything, I would have dealt Julius Randle a year earlier and tried to get some more depth and kept Obi Toppin, knowing that Obi Toppin is probably going to be your backup for a long time. We can use him in starter minutes when we need to, but he's going to be much cheaper. And so it's better to have a guy who's cheaper, which is why I say Santi Aldama is a great backup, even though he might be kind of soft like Miles Turner. I think he's a little bit better rebounder than Miles Turner. Not the same shot blocker, but he gives you that, space front court player who shoots threes at 6'11", 7 feet. But it's to say that Santi Aldama at 8 million is far more valuable than Miles Turner at 32, 35 million. Obi Toppin for the New York Knicks would have been far more valuable at his current contract than keeping around Julius Randle, whom you already knew you were probably going to have to move on from. Right? These were the kind of shrewd moves that needed to happen earlier rather than later. Julius Randle was already, and I get at the time it might have been like you're selling low on him, but they would have gotten out from under that contract. They would have had an opportunity to bring in multiple assets, maybe two guys, a front court center and another power forward. Maybe you trade him for a draft pick that turns into someone else, right? There are a lot of options that they could have had if they had done it early rather than late. But it is what it is. I think for the Detroit Pistons, we're in a wonderful position. Don't move too fast. If you're the Knicks, I'm sorry, if you're the Pistons, Knicks is already, you know, they're in that vacuum. I think if they're lucky, they can get Durant. But if you're the Pistons, you have to learn from these teams of what to do, and other teams that are struggling, like the Knicks, of what not to do. And I say the Knicks are struggling relative to they were just in the Eastern Conference Finals, right? So that they're not exactly horrible, horrendous place, right? The Charlotte Hornets, a lot of teams wish they were in their position. Miami Heat, etc. All I have to say is learning from these teams. The Detroit Pistons must maintain that continuity. They have to make sure that guys are used to playing with each other, because you have to trust each other for these deep playoff runs. You have to trust not just in your talent, but in the talent of the guy next to you, that allows you to play selfless, team first basketball, that allows you to play and have your teammates back defensively, making those rotations the third and the fourth time, even when you're tired, right? That gives you the confidence in one another and your team unit to say, Coach, I need a breather, not just playing for myself, but for my team and saying, hey, bring in my sub. I know I'm going to come back in, but I also trust my sub for the betterment of this team, right? Every guy fits into the system and the culture. These guys, which is why I don't want Nas Reed. So why I don't want Ty Jerome. I don't want guys who are malcontents. I don't want guys who didn't get along with JB Bickerstaff when he was in Cleveland. Ty Jerome. I don't want guys like Nas Reed, who was fighting our rookie, Ron Holland. It's like it's out of pocket. And just off GP, you don't recruit the dude that has funk with your guy. If you're friends, you don't become friends with the guy who has funk with your friend. It's just bro code. You just don't do that. And so when it comes to, you know, uh, who we bring in this offseason, who we even look at, no, I don't want Miles Turner, right? Pacers were trash talking the Detroit Pistons in all of our games, right? Jalen Duren, you know, getting better throughout the season. Why would you go after Miles Turner to undermine Jalen Duren or trade away Jalen Duren for a 30-year-old from a 21-year-old? Right? Like it just doesn't make sense. Those things you just don't do. It doesn't bode well for your team maintaining continuity and growing together so you could be this solidified team moving forward into the playoffs. That's what you're looking at with these two teams, the Indiana Pacers and the Oklahoma City Thunder. They are solidified teams. They bought in. They have each other's back. They love playing with each other. They love playing for one another, and it's allowed them to beat teams that have been even more talented. Even more talented. All that's to say, Detroit Pistons, you're in a great position. They got the number 37 pick. I'm gonna do some more draft stuff in the future as well. I like Chaz Lanier, guys like that. All to say is it's gonna be a dope off season. Stay tuned on this channel. If you enjoy these interactive chats, smash the like button for me. Hit subscribe and the bell for notifications. That tells YouTube you want to be notified the next time that I do these lives because you want to chop it up with me in this community as we talk Detroit basketball. But as always, it's your man 100 grand. Ross with the Rock never stops, and I'm gonna get at y'all next time. Peace.